Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Greg's Garden and Worm Farm, coming to you on the 7th day of August 2020, just one day past the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. Very tragic event. And I'm going to be asking a very important question, that is, can China covertly invade the United States or any other country with a large military, a large army? And I'm going to ask, why would they do it, and why might they not do that? So we're going to explore this a little bit. And unfortunately, the answer, could China covertly, I mean sneak up on us with a large army, is yes. Now, I've been talking that I would do a presentation on this, and a lot of people have been begging me for it. I've had a person say, no, don't give China any ideas. Well, I hate to tell you, but there's no new ideas here. Anything and everything that I'm about to tell you is something that they already know. They've already figured. It's easy to come up with what I've already come up with. And I've consulted with some other people, and they go, oh, yeah, China's got this. So I've done some consultations. So what I'm not doing is informing China. What I'm doing is informing you so that you can know to be aware and prepared. Don't be scared. Be prepared. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm asking, can it happen? I won't explore why they might do it, what would give them incentive, but reasons that they might not want to do it also, and how they could actually pull this off if they so chose, to some degree. I think that they will mire also in this, so if they chose to do it. Yeah, I think it'd be catastrophic for us and them. So I will go into that. And so let's look at some of these aspects of how they could do it. I'm going to do a share here. I'm going to share Google. Give me a second. That's not the screen I want to look at. We're going to look at, oh yeah, a lot of people may know that China's buying up ports the world over. It so happens that we forced them to sell the port of Long Beach. I'll go into that in just a moment. So let's start this as a basic analysis. What I'm talking about is China sneaking people over in ISO shipping containers. Those big, long metal containers you see on trucks and ships, the big, long metal boxes. They are 20-foot long and 40-foot long typically. And they're measured in what they call the 20-foot equivalents, TEUs. And 20-foot equivalent, of course, is based on the 20-foot unit. They're 20 by 8 by 8 foot, or some of them are 20 by 8.5. Now, a 40-foot long one is considered 2 TEUs. They ship both sides quite a bit. So that gives you the definition. Now, it just so happens that the largest cargo ships that China has can carry a phenomenal number of these. We're talking 24,000 TEUs. Can you believe that? Can you see my cursor here? 24,000 TEUs on one ship. Now, so let's get into why that matters. How many soldiers could they really expect? How long does it take them to get a ship from China to, say, the Long Beach? 2 weeks. Now think about it. You've had the cases of astronauts in Gemini capsules where they're basically strapped in a chair for 2 whole weeks and longer. And so they're not going to be as hard pressed as those people, what I'm about to explain to you. So if you think about it, a TU, let's just look at the floor space, 8 foot by 20 foot. 8 foot by 20 foot. You can do a lot with 8 foot by 20 foot. You could even subdivide it into layers and triple what I'm saying if you put them in, 3 foot layers or 2.5 foot layers. Give everybody a little crawl space, or if you string a lot of hammocks up. But let's think about it. How much water does it take per day per an individual? About a gallon. How much water does it take to add to cook? Let's say maybe another gallon. How much food does it take? Well, I'm going to show you something. This is a 2-week food supply of long-lasting foods. That's supplied by My Patriot Supply. Let me see. You get a lot of good food in here. But this is 2 weeks. And this 2 week supply is comes in a container that's 10 by 13. Actually, it's not even 13 high inches by 8 inches. That's about 13. Yeah, that's the dimensions of this container. I've got the ruler here, roughly speaking. But it's not maximized for that kind of storage. This is maximized for something you can carry. It's got, you pop it open. It's not, it's probably filled to here, not all the way up. So this is maximized to be a good storage container, something you can carry around. Oh, by the way, I do have a special on this. You can get 2 of these for $100 off with prepwithgreg.com. Really excellent deal. 25-year storage of food. All kind of lovely, luscious, delicious meals. Quite a variety in here. Last you 25 years. 2 of them. $100 off at prepwithgreg.com. This is the time to prep, especially with things going on in the world today. Then right now, it might be your chance to shore your preps up. So I would say buy as many of those as you can while you can. The 2 week, to buy one alone, they're not selling that. They're only selling now for 2 because that's just the way they're packaging the deal now. But you can get $100 off with prepwithgreg.com. And you can also click the My Patriot Supply logo there, and it will take you into their site. We can get all kind of prep and supplies, and that helps my channel too. So please avail yourself of that while you can, while the deal is still good, because food supplies are going to become very scarce, and that may be a little bit what we're going to talk about, but I'll do a special video on that in the near future. So let's get back into it. So if you take an ISO shipping container, and a lot of them are 8.5 foot tall inside. Let's just say it's 8 foot. 8. And let's take one, you can put that in 1 foot. If you took 1 foot section out of an ISO shipping container, 1 foot, then you got 8 wide, 8 tall. That is, and you come out a foot. That is a 64 cubic feet of storage. Now this thing is actually, if you run the numbers on it, 1,040 cubic inches. A cubic foot is 1,728 cubic inches. So that is 0.6 cubic feet, a little better than half a cubic foot in total volume for a 2 weeks food supply. How long did I say it's going to take to get from China to the port of Long Beach? 2 weeks. Oh, let me do another disclaimer here. We're not saying that anybody's good or bad. We're talking about what could happen, and these kind of things are political, military affairs that are decided by the political powers that be, wherever they're at. And so we're really talking about a decision that would be made by the Chinese Communist Party, which may or may not, which does not really reflect necessarily the opinions of the people of China. It is the political class that rules the state. There are good people in every land. There are good people with good hearts, good sound minds, smart people who care, who love. At the very core, people are the same anywhere in the world. Now, the powers that be anywhere in the world also strive to divide and conquer people against each other, because that's how they build their power. That's how they ensure up their power base. But sometimes these games that put them in power come into a collision with reality, and bad things can happen. And that's what we're talking about here. So in no way am I trying to denigrate any people anywhere in the world. There are lots of good people in China. I know this. I've dealt with lots of them personally. I've dated Chinese women. I have Chinese colleagues, and quite often in my life, both at school and in the workplace. And actually, I turned an organization over that I ran for 23 years to a young, brilliant, good-hearted Chinese man who I have a lot of respect for. So in no way am I trying to disparage any people anywhere ever. But parties that rule anywhere and everywhere are always suspect, including here. I do talk about things that lead to dynamics of corruption and power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Birds of a feather flock together, and he who makes a goal makes rule. You take these three things together, and you're going to have tyranny in time. You need checks and balances and freedoms to protect people from those tyrannies. Any one-party system will be corrupt. Two-party systems are corrupt, but maybe not as bad. They do have some checks and balances against each other. So, all right, done saying all that. This is not about the people of China. It's not saying this is going to happen again. But what I am saying is, indeed, you could put a lot of people on one of these ISO shipping containers. That's what I'm getting at. So you got 68 cubic feet just in 1 foot. Well, 68 cubic foot of water is 68 gallons. You only need a gallon per person per day, so you got a lot of excess water storage capacity in an ISO shipping container. Just on the end of the wall. Food. How much food would that be? If I divided 0.6 into 64, that would feed 106 people for 2 weeks. That's more people than you're going to get in an ISO shipping container. So if you took 1 or 2 foot, let's say you took 2 foot out of the end of the ISO shipping container, you can put a lot of food, batteries, equipment, store waste, and you could also use the floor space because most people don't stand 8 foot tall. So taking a foot out of the floor space gives you a lot of storage. Also, you might take 2 foot. If you take the, if we take out 2 foot of floor space, then you've got 18 by 8 available. 18 by 8 is 144 square feet. Now, a human being, let's say if we're laying down, they're 6 foot tall. Most people are not 6 foot tall, and Chinese tend to be a little bit shorter than Americans. Not always. But if you take, again, 3 by 6 feet, which is a standard cot, it's 18 square feet. So if you divide 144, what's left over from taking 2 foot out of the ISO shipping container, 144 again is 18 times 8. If you divide that by 18, the floor space that somebody might want to lie down in a cot or in a sleeping bag, it wouldn't be a cot probably. Most likely it'd be in a hammock. Then you could put 8 people in an ISO shipping container. You don't need 8 cubic foot of space for water and maybe less than 4 cubic foot of space for food. So that's 64 cubic foot. Yeah, so you need to put in another foot. You didn't have to even use any of that space at the end. You can probably put 10 people in. You can put another 4 people in at least hanging in hammocks, or maybe another 8. So you could stack it up. You could probably get 24 people in an ISO shipping container. That was the number that I was working on earlier, 24 people. But let's set all that aside. You don't need 24 people. They've got ample storage, ample shipping available to them. So if you look at it from that standpoint, 24, 18 people, or 8 people, there's a lot of people. So let's look to what's possible in an ISO shipping container ship. There's over 9,000 ocean-going cargo vessels in the world. China owns over half of them. China builds about 90% of the ISO shipping containers. Now, they know ISO shipping containers. They know what they can do, and they can stack them real high. Here is what's crazy. When you look at how many they can actually put on a ship, or the biggest ships, let's go back here. The biggest ships can carry, once again, 24,000 ISO shipping containers at 20 foot equivalents. 24,000. Wow, that's a lot. So let's say you just put people in half of them. Let's say we put half of them cargo, especially ones on the inside where there's maybe less air. We put cargo, we put food, fuel, jeeps, bazookas, rocket launchers, artillery pieces, ammunition. Say half of your jeeps, motorcycles, tools for digging, backpacks. So say half of those are used for equipment, and the outer half are for personnel. So that would say you're using maybe 12,000 on one of these largest ships. So if you had 12,000 20-foot equivalents with 8 people each in them, that's 96,000 people on one ship. That's an army. 96,000 people. That is nuts. So to give you an idea, a brigade, which would be typically run by a colonel or brigadier general, a brigade has about 1.5 to up to 4,000 individuals. A division has 10 to 18,000 individuals. I'm talking a division would be run from anybody from a brigadier up to a lieutenant general, 3-star general. We're talking a big military unit. A division, a brigade is a good sized military unit. A brigade consists of battalions. Battalions consist of companies. Companies consist of squads. Squads consist of teams. So if you took 96,000 divided by 18,000, you could get over 5 divisions, in one ship. That's definitely a lieutenant general, maybe a 4-star general. 5 divisions on one ship. Just using half the capacity of the troops. Greg, how you do that? How are they going to brave? What's it going to look like? Let's look at this. Now that's the bigger ships. That is a lot of troops. Now here is one class that carries something on the order of 18,000 TEUs. Now I want you to look. There is airspace between these units. For one, the pallets and the way they're stacked on the floor means there's air that can run under the floor. You're on the ship and it's moving and the ocean breeze is blowing. There's air moving around. You can put vent systems in the upper and the top. And you got enough room for batteries. You can suck air in, blow air out. That way that the air is being recirculated. In fact, a lot of these have gaps between, they stack them up on top of each other, but there's gaps between these things, and there's also gaps at the bottom. You can see that in some of the photos we'll go through here in a minute. So this is a Marks, I can pronounce, this is a normal ship, M-A-E-R-S-K, Marks. There was an Alabama, there was a Marks, or whatever it's called, Alabama. Now, I'm not getting the pronunciation right, forgive me for that. It's not in my tongue necessarily. So I'll have to shrink this down. My tool here, every time I try to reach up here and grab a tab, it tries to lower down on me. So let's give you some other pictures here for how these things are stacked and what it looks like. You can see again the airspace below them. There are gaps between them. If you look at this picture, you can see the big gaps between. Of course, this ship is tilted over and it spilt some of these guys off the side. So, we would pray that if somebody's going to send an army over here, they hit a typhoon. And one comes up unexpectedly, right? If something happens and they just don't get here, and they got to go home. We don't want to be able to say there's big gaps between these. And that's pretty typical. You can have air gaps, especially if you want to have air gaps. Yeah, here's another ship, air gaps. So that's pretty typical. Yeah, they like to show the disasters, right? So this is a big ship here. And you can see clearly that you can put a lot of these on here. I think sometimes you can go down to the cargo hold in some of these ships. Yeah, there's a lot of ISO ship containers on it. Each one of these is puny on here. And then yet each one is big. On the ship, it's puny. These are huge ocean-going cargo vessels. So here's one company in China. This one company, the China Shipping Company, owns 148 vessels. Let's say that you only want to get, let's say you want to put 10, let's say you want to land an army of 20 million on the West Coast. And so you want to go to Long Beach. You want to send some to Portland. You want to send some to Seattle, some to San Francisco. I don't know if you want to send them to San Diego or not, being a native town there. Well, maybe they do. But you can spread them out. But one ship, you can put 96,000 on. How many ships would it take to land an army of 2 million? You could do it within just under 21 ships. 21 ships, only using half, the larger ships, using only half of their capacity. Just 21. You could land an army of 2 million. Think about that. 2 million. So that's like take 2 million divided by 96,000 is 20.8. That's where we get 21. Wow. Only 21 ships. Here's a company's got 148. Could they do it? And maybe they want to get some through the Panama Canal and come around the East Coast. Well, maybe you'll go for less. Maybe you'll use ships that only carry 10,000 TEUs, and maybe you only put 5,000 troops on each one. So to land an army of 1 million in New York, you need like, let's see, 1 million divided by 40,000, which is the number of troops you put on each of those ships, would be 25. So you want to be sneaking through the canal, 25 ships would land you an army of 1 million on the East Coast. Maybe you go around, yeah, you got plenty of food and water supplies. You can make it longer than 2 weeks in there. You can go around other ways. Maybe they'll do it when it's summer and they can get through the Northwest Passage. Maybe they'll come around underneath South America. Maybe they will come up that way. That's a longer trip, by the way. But they could definitely land troops on the East Coast if they so chose. Maybe not as many, definitely not as many. And they'd be in for a longer haul. But if they so chose, they could land them on the East Coast. So, but I would submit that their main objective, if China was to attack, would be to come in on the West Coast. And why do I say that? One, it's more accessible. And two, if they were going to EMP that, well, how would they do this? Well, I would submit they would probably take out our power grid first. They would probably have a big hacking attack and a major direct ballistic attack where people go in and shoot up substations, like happened in San Jose substation a few years back. Except this time it wouldn't be a drive run, it would be the actual event where we were trying to take it out. It wouldn't be a practice session. So that could definitely happen. I'm not saying it would happen, I'm saying it could happen. Oops. Let's pull this up again. Just a little bit. Again, I kind of get aggravated by the way my tool works because it tries to lower down a tab every time I click on a tab up here. Well, now let's look. What do you got in California to defend? You got about 10,700 state troopers. You got the biggest National Guard unit of, let's see, what do we got here? 23,000. So with 23,000 National Guard and 10,700 state troopers, you got 33,700 people between those two, if they could all devote themselves in defending against the ship, people landing. But that ship might have 96,000. So all their forces might only be a third of what could be landed on that ship, on a single ship. How many ships would they land in one given port? Well, that's kind of hard to say. Now, it could be that, how would I think they'd do? Again, I think they would take out the grid. And they would probably put some aerial EMPs, either fractional bombardment from a satellite, or I don't think they'll launch a ballistic missile. You couldn't sneak up on the country that way, but they, at least from China, but they might launch them from off the shore of Venezuela, a politically unstable country, or off the shore. Nobody knows exactly where it came from. They could be much smaller missiles launched from a cargo ship, like the Chang of North Korea, which is steaming around in that area. In 2013, with two fully erect missile launchers in the cargo hold, and got caught on one back through the Panama Canal on the way out. Yeah. So there's a precedence for that, and who knows? Maybe North Korea would do it. Maybe they would have a patsy country do it for them if they wanted to do this, or they might do it themselves. How would you know? Was it Russia, Iran, North Korea, or China? How would you know who was attacking if suddenly two went off over the East Coast? EMP super weapons. One over the East Coast, one over the Midwest, taking out all our ICBM bases, because the EMP super weapon puts 200,000 volts per meter on electrical lines. The military hardened facilities are only hardened to 50,000 volts. So you'd take out your ICBM bases. It would take out your military bases all down the East Coast. But you'd also have a problem on your nuclear power plants. But if they're just planning to take the West Coast, maybe they wouldn't mind some things. And maybe they would want to take the West Coast because there's more gun control there. The people, maybe they might think they're getting liberated. Oh, the communists, Chinese Communist Party has come. Yay! Hey, I don't know. Not most people wouldn't think that, but there might be enough. They would probably have sleeper cells prearranged to go into the ports because they've had to turn some of those ports back over. They wouldn't want some random inspection to discover what was in their containers, although those are not done that frequently. If they were in the container, I guess the guys inside would take care of business real fast and be ready for that. So, you got one or two guys open the container, they're not ready for 8 guys to jump out on them and gun them down. Probably not. And then those guys would rapidly turn around and open other containers. More likely, they would have a sleeper cell ready when those containers land. They would go in and take the port. They probably would not want to take out the power grid on the West Coast because they want those ports to run if they wanted to do an operation like this, or they might selectively take it down in certain areas. They might do a tactical EMP weapon to take care of naval bases like you would find in San Diego. Maybe something to take care of, the, the bases in Hawaii. So Things like that might be how they would operate. But Greg, we have submarines. You know, those submarines aren't going to launch anything unless they get that emergency action alert. What do they call that? They're no longer allowed. Commanders no longer have the discretion to launch. They're no longer independent. And if our grid's right over here, nobody's giving that order. So what happens then? So yeah, and by the time the commanders might figure out they need to do something, the submarines and other places, the Chinese will be hunting furiously to find those guys. So could China invade? Wow. Let's look at this. Let's look at some of the ports. Oh, Army. Well, the Chinese Army is only about, the active personnel is 2 million with over 500,000 reserve. I saw another stat said 2.8 million overall. So we're talking, you know, I was talking about numbers greater than the size of their army. I'll come back to that in a moment when I talk about why would they invade. If they could actually bump that up quite a bit. Port of Long Beach. Port of Long Beach was a port that had belonged to a Hong Kong company. We considered Hong Kong an allied trading partner, but of course we know what's happened to Hong Kong now. But before that, that company was overtaken by a Chinese national company, and the sale of Long Beach was forced by the United States government. And it was taken over by Orient Overseas International, and they were forced to sell it, and they sold it to I can't even pronounce it, Marcari Group. It's an Australian company. So the Aussies now run that port. And Aussies tend to be not so unfriendly to us. So we're not concerned about Australia invading the United States. No, that's not happening. At least not in the next 3 or 4 years anyway, right? So, yeah, the administration deemed that there was a security concern there, but the Chinese still have strong influence there. This is a huge port. Let's look at it. Bam. Huge port, over 3,000 acres, 3,200 acres. That is ginormous. You can just line ships up in there everywhere. There's big cranes everywhere. Yeah, they could unload a lot of stuff real fast. And before you know it, holy smoke. You got Port of Oregon, Port of Seattle. There's lots of ports out there. So, post some of these. No point in dwelling on those ports anymore. Californians don't own, well, we'll get back into that in a minute. So how many are in the United States military by comparison? So like I said, you got roughly 30,000 state troopers and National Guardsmen together in California. One ship might land over 96,000 or better. You might put people in every shipping container. I'll show you that in a minute too. You know what you could do if you really were worried about airflow into the inner containers, which I don't think they are. I mean, they could run lines to them, but you could use a Sabatier process, and Sabatier figured this out in 1897. Yeah, over 100 years ago, right? It's amazing what was done in the 1700s and 1800s in science. But this is his chemical process for converting carbon dioxide and hydrogen into methane and water. Well, you can adapt it for a space station. You can take water plus separate the oxygen from electrolysis so you can have oxygen to breathe. Then you wind up with hydrogen. You have 2 hydrogen atoms left over. You would excel carbon dioxide, so you take and recombine the 2 hydrogen atoms with that, and you come up basically with water and methane, the discarded methane. So you got water again. You scrub the water out of the air with a dehumidifier or from the urine, and you do electrolysis on it, and you start the whole cycle over. So yeah, you can keep things going for some time in a container that hasn't very much in the way of airflow to it. Also, you could have the Russians on the Mir space station used oxygen candles. They actually had created a fire to create oxygen. Kind of backwards process. How did they come up with that? You have CO2 scrubbers. You know, there's been life support technology on submarines for years, and China has submarines. So this is nothing new to them. They have their equipment, their life support system for the submarines, whatever they're using in their submarines, but works just fine. And these submarines, especially nuclear submarines, can stay underwater for months at a time. So 6 months or so. So they would have no problem. In fact, they might send some subs over. I hope they don't come up with cargo subs, also shipping containers. They're not watertight though. Well, they might find a way, as long as they don't go deep, right? Water pressure would crush them. Even though they do stand with a lot of stuff on deck, right? A lot of containers on deck. So that's what we're looking at and how they could get troops here. I'm telling you, they could send the entire army over here and then some. But great, they don't have any troops. They got things to attend to at home, blah, 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 blah. Well, it just so happens that the Chinese economy has hit a snag due to several factors. Trade wars. A lot of countries are suddenly getting disenfranchised with China because of the recent military aggressiveness and also flooding, the pandemic that they've had, the floods that are going on. The factory capacity is not running anywhere near full capacity. In fact, they're looking at maybe 290 million people being out of work. That's almost the population around the States that having to hunt jobs. That's a ginormous bunch of people. So suddenly you got all these idle factories that can be put to military manufacturing. Hey, look, they book go cities like crazy. So why can't they turn factories and make anything they want? Just print money for a little while. Just, you know, inflation might be about to go away, but if you're about to launch a major invasion on the world, hey, you roll the dice. We'll go into that in a minute. So why would they do it? Social stress at home, food shortages. Food is highly challenged in China right now. We're looking at, let me open myself back up here. I'll stop the share. There we go. Hello. Food shortages because the Yangtze River Valley produces 40% of the food in China. They're getting summer snow in places in Beijing even this year. They're really facing the prospects of maybe an early fall up north in one of the other growing areas. And then you got locusts. Oh, and on top of that, they're having a lot of problem with the current food storage. In fact, they won't allow cameras or cell phones go anywhere near their granaries because pictures have been sent out where the grain is just it's molded to nothing. You pick a handful of corn of maize and do this, and you get powder. It's a mess. China is having severe food problems. They're trying to hide it. They're buying as much as they can on the world market right now, which is going to drive prices through the sky. But can they buy enough? Can they buy enough to feed their people? They have over, 1.3 billion people. Can China feed its people with the shortages they're facing? They're still raining. They just got hit by 2 typhoons. What happens if the Three Gorges Dam goes? So you've got excess factory capacity, unemployed people, and food shortages, unrest, severe drives for unrest. So the powers that be, the dictator Xi and more, the CCP, wants to stay in power. That's their primary objective, is to stay in power. So they might decide to wag the dog, to force the tension overseas. How the United States has done this, they just steam through the South China Sea, how dare they? False flag, they may pull a false flag, we may pull a false flag, who knows? Tensions are high between the countries. We could get entangled by an accidental event, by misinterpretation of intention, or the intent to wag a dog. So we could definitely get into it with them. In any event that we get into them, they may have plans to put some of these 290 million work out of people somewhere. I mean, China has an excess number of men. So it may not be a big concern to them to put some of them. Hey, it's less people to feed if you send them overseas. So you can tell them to take over land and live off the land after a certain point. So, yeah, they have incentive maybe to do something like this, to send troops. How would they send so many troops? Great, that's bigger than their whole army, what they're talking about. Well, they don't have to be highly trained troops. What we're talking about is a paramilitary force of basically irregulars. You take guys off the street, you put them through, you take the best, strongest ones, you put them through. Hey, I went through a 6-week basic training. take out the studying for the Uniform Code of Military Justice and marching. You could condense that 3 to 4 weeks maybe, and do 2 of the book learning weeks while they're in transit, for Pete's sake. So when the door opens, they're in combat. So training's over. Mission changes. When they open the ISO ship container door, that's when the day changes. They're a landing party. So think about that. It can be a landing party in the dock, not coming up on a place like our ancestors did at D-Day. Storming Omaha Beach and all these beaches along the Northern East Coast. Not facing the hardened system that the Germans had there with fortifications shooting down on them on the wide open beach. No, they're just going into a port, and nobody even knows they're there, at least not enough. And suddenly they're fanning out through LA and beyond. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in LA. I did a video in LA. So that's some of why it could happen. What could it happen? Why could it happen? And lastly, when I talked about LA, I did talk about a family there that produces all their food on the 10th of an acre. And it was originally for 4 adults. One's passed, so it's 3. But they sell from that 10th of an acre and make a living. It's for those adults. I got 2 videos on that family, the Base family. They're an excellent family. So what you need to know is you can grow a lot of food on a small area of land, including in your living room. I did videos on that. So you can go to my page, go to True Leaf Market and get heirloom seeds and grow your own garden. You need to prep because this stuff could be coming at you, literally. Okay? Enough said. Check my link to True Leaf Market along with prepwithgreg.com. Now back to the story here. What I've laid out is they could take out the grid. They're going to know if they take out most of the grid, this country's going to be fighting itself. We're going to eat ourselves. We're going to be a lot weaker when they come here, even if it's just 2 weeks later. We're going to be in a sad state. So it'd make it a lot easier for them to take a lot of territory. They would probably wait a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months. They say after a year, we'd lose 90% of our population. Well, there's not going to be anything to help those people. They might try to send ships up the rivers to secure the nuclear power plants if they want to take the entire land, or we'll find some way to keep all that radiation going around the world. The safest place in the world, the farthest place from all this stuff to build this country, and the East Coast is on our West Coast, by the way. So maybe that's where their elites are going to come after their first forces secure. But again, like I said, they can be irregulars. They don't need to be highly trained. All they might do is have the squad leaders or team leaders be an actual soldier. So you might have 1 actual soldier for 5 or 6 or maybe even 12 people, how they really want to do it. And so that would be their sergeants. They would take regular soldiers, promote them to sergeant, give them a team or a squad. And, the squad has 2 fire teams in it. Typically, that's the way we organize our military. I say they're about the same in organization. So they would put, one of these ISO shipping containers could hold a whole squad easily. You can put more than 8 people in it. You can put 12 people easily. I'm being conservative. You can easily, and that's what I would think they would actually do, is put a squad per container. Just because that's a good military organization. Put up 3 hammocks and let people rotate through the hammocks. 2/3 awake and 1/3 asleep all the time. Who knows how they would want to do it. But I definitely think they could get a squad in each 20-foot equivalent. So that's more troops than 96,000, by the way. We're talking about excess of 20,000 for the bigger ships. They might come over with smaller ones. Who says they're going to use a bigger ship? They don't even need it. I mean, they can send so many troops up. They got so many ships, and once they start coming, there can be more to follow up. Once they secure an area, they just send more troops, and they use them to keep things going. So they could bleed off a lot of those people that are hungry and disaffected, and the people in the country, oh yeah, we're doing something. We're under attack. We got to be careful. We can't overthrow anybody. And they're hunkered down. That would give excuse for martial law, more martial law, and more closures. They've already had a good practice of that with the epidemic earlier in the year, right? What they did in Wuhan and places like that. So China could use this as a means to maintain political control at home. Good point. So let's say that they were successful and did take out our forces completely, and our military was totally neutered. And I'm saying if, big if, big if. I'm not saying that would happen. I am a veteran, my friends. And I know some of our boys are going to be really disturbed about that and find some way to take action if something like this happens. But let's just say, for the talk of discussion, that that's not the case, that they totally neutralize our military. And they could neutralize the strategic forces. I do believe that they've got a good shot at just totally neutralizing our strategic forces that we would shoot, those large weapons of mass destruction like we used on Hiroshima 75 years and 1 day ago. So, we have more powerful ones than that. But they could pretty much get rid of most of that with EMP super weapon. So that's why they might have incentive to come over. The disincentive is this. I did a video on it. I called it Don't Tread on Me. And Don't Tread on Me, I talked about how when it goes down over here, the survivors on this side are going to be some pretty tough hombres. And they're going to be very mad tough hombres. Oh, these guys did this to us. I've had to go through all this because of these guys. Oh, and I lost my loved grandma. I lost this person, that person. Most of the people I love were lost because of these guys. Ooh, let me tell you something. If we only had, 3 million people on our side surviving, you're going to see a core of people in there. You're going to see the meanest, baddest army. They could take on an army of any size and go through it like going through butter. They will be in trouble. These guys will be hard and mad, and they're going to be experienced at that point in time. And there's going to be a lot of veterans. We have a lot of veterans in this country, and veterans will not sit happily with this. Neither will, good old boys. Whether General Yamamoto actually did or did not say there would be a rifle hiding behind every blade of grass. There will be. There literally will be. So, indeed, the Chinese, they might take the West Coast initially. They may get up our rivers for a time, but our boys are going to kick back. And they wouldn't stop once they freed our land. I think they're going to be so mad, they're going to go over there. They want to find some way to get there. And, they would make Genghis Khan proud of what they will do. They would make Genghis Khan or any of the Viking raiders, Attila the Hun, because they would be a hard, lean, mean, mad military. And you don't want to cause a situation like that, China. So go back and see my video, Don't Tread on Me. I talked about this. The Chinese would be in severe trouble. It would come back on them. They won't get away with it. Yeah, they could do a lot of damage. So maybe it gives a little time to the CCP. Maybe they would do it. And maybe they don't believe any of this stuff. And then again, maybe they're smart enough to know they shouldn't really want to do this in the first place. And that may be our biggest thing to bank on. I mean, after all, they own land here too. Business share. But for all their businesses crashing, maybe they don't care. Let's hope and pray that none of this happens. This would be a very, very, very ugly situation. We don't want it. Let's hope they don't want it. The people don't want it. People nowhere want this stuff. People there, people here. If it left to the people, we'd find a way to get along. But, it's the powers that be that pit us against each other, and, on both sides. There's plenty of blame to go around, but what we need to do is find ways as people to get along with each other. That's going to be really challenging. If we are under invasion, you have to defend yourself. You absolutely have to. If your home is being invaded by whoever, whatever, however, you have to defend your home, your family, your town. Take action. People are coming. You and your neighbors all get together and do what you can. Your neighborhood, your town, your community. There may not be anybody else to do it. When it all goes down, you got to scrap whatever you can up to make it work. So I think I've beat on this enough. I've asked the question, could China covertly invade the United States or any other country? With ISO shipping containers, the answer is yes. You would think you just got cargo coming in. Just cargo loaded on you got all these cargo containers just offloading the dock. That's all it is. but then they're full of troops. And somebody should discover this before they open them up. They probably got a sleeper cell just waiting right outside the port to go in. Or maybe they're already in the port. Maybe they guys will go in and open hangars. And some of these ports are already ran by China. Lots of them are. Fortunately, the Greek cargo magnates are pushing back now. So maybe the Greeks will save the day. You know, I might say that ain't Greek, you know, it's Greek to me, but that's Greek to celebrate. So let's hope these things don't come to pass. China is definitely beleaguered. Our great hope would be that the people would actually do something before the party wags the dog and disposes tyranny with jackboot on their neck and finds freedom. I deeply believe in freedom for one and all, for everybody. Because freedom gives you the opportunity to aspire and to reach new levels in so many ways. There's no point in living under a jackboot, especially with the kind of technology coming to us. You'd be lucky to be just a worker in. So we don't want to go there. It's time for freedom. The time for freedom has come back. The pendulum has swung too far anti-freedom. And I'm starting an organization to petition for freedom. The Freedom Restoration Foundation. So if you want to find out about the Freedom Restoration Foundation, email me at HAL5space, link will be below, at AOL.com, and put freedom in the subject line. If you're interested in joining my tribe network, put tribe in the subject line. Anyway, we've gone long. I've beat on this thing long enough, but I have explained, yes, technically, they can do it. 2, there will be some reasons that might make them want to do that, but 3, there are reasons why they would not want to do that. And let's hope those latter reasons prevail. We don't know what the answer is yet. Our crystal ball is about as clear as a bucket of tar. But you can always look to see what do their generals write, how do they act, what's happening. Oh, but you got to judge how they write. Because you got to remember, Chinese are masters of Sun Tzu. China says, when you're far away, look like you're close. When you're close, look like you're far away. The art of deception is the key thing. So if generals are writing things like they currently are, oh, we couldn't possibly take on Taiwan. Let's not do it. It's a bad thing. That probably means they're planning to do it. Maybe. But again, hey, I can't speak for the intent of the CCP, but they've certainly got very adventurous. They've done a lot of practice sessions for taking Taiwan of late. They've got their 9-9 islands. They're building like unsinkable aircraft carriers. They're cutting deals all across the Pacific. They've been setting up the chessboard, but it's beginning to implode from the inside. So let's hope that, once again, hope and pray that there's a change of power for greater freedom for the people of China. China, as a free people, would accomplish amazing things. And hopefully we can all celebrate with them together and move forward as a free humanity into the future. So with that, I think I've said enough. I'm just going to say thank you for watching. Check the links below. Thank you.